The crime you don't see is the one that wins. While Latin America's most sophisticated criminal network is already part of the global system, for decades, the West learned to recognize organized crime by its noise: gunfire, turf wars, cartels, slums. Violence was the signal. When violence rose, states reacted. That mental model is now obsolete. The most dangerous criminal organizations of the 21st century are not the loudest. They are the ones that learned how modern democracies function and quietly adapted. Brazil offers a warning sign that much of the West has not yet understood, from street violence to system control. When foreign audiences think about organized crime in Brazil, they often imagine chaotic violence similar to what has long characterized parts of Rio de Janeiro. That image fits older criminal structures such as the Comando Vermelho, whose power depends on visible territorial dominance. But Brazil's most powerful criminal organization followed a radically different path. The Primeiro Comando da Capital, PCC, did not build its strength through constant public violence. It emerged inside prisons and developed not as a gang, but as an organization with rules, internal discipline, financial logic, and long-term strategy. Its most important decision was simple and ruthless. Violence attracts the state. Stability attracts opportunity. Why fewer murders can mean more power. Over the past 2 decades, homicide rates in São Paulo have fallen dramatically. This is often cited as proof of effective policing and institutional progress, and part of that explanation is true, but it is incomplete. As the PCC consolidated itself as a hegemonic force, internal disputes declined. Rival factions disappeared. Conflicts that once ended in murder were resolved quietly, outside the view of police, media, or public scrutiny. The streets became calmer. The organization became stronger. This is not peace in the democratic sense. It is order imposed by a parallel authority. As one Brazilian expression captures it, a peace without a voice is not peace. It is fear, the shift that should worry the West. The PCC did not abandon violence because it became more humane. It abandoned violence because it discovered something more effective: control. Today, its influence reaches far beyond drugs. Investigations and court cases have linked its operations to fuel distribution and price manipulation, logistics and transportation networks, gold extraction and environmental crime, public procurement and contract fraud, money laundering through legitimate businesses. This is not criminal chaos, it is criminal governance. And governance does not need guns in the streets. It needs accountants, intermediaries, shell companies, and access to financial systems. Why this is no longer a Brazilian problem. Here is where international audiences often make a fatal mistake. They assume this threat stops at Brazil's borders. It does not. Modern organized crime does not need to export violence to export risk. It only needs to export capital. Money generated in illicit markets is laundered through global financial hubs, real estate markets, commodity trading, and investment vehicles. The same mechanisms that attract legitimate global capital also absorb criminal capital when oversight is weak or fragmented. London does not see the gunfire. It sees property purchases and complex legal structures. New York does not see the territory disputes. It sees transactions that appear legal on paper. You do not need PCC members operating openly in Western cities for this to matter. You only need their money circulating inside your system. The quiet path toward a narco-state. Political scientists define a narco-state not as a country ruled by criminals, but as one where the state increasingly adapts to criminal economic power rather than confronting it. Brazil has not crossed that line. Law enforcement still acts, prosecutors still investigate, governments still resist, but the trajectory is familiar. History shows that states rarely collapse because crime overwhelms them violently. They weaken when criminal structures become economically indispensable, politically inconvenient to confront, and socially normalized. The warning signs are subtle. That is precisely why they are ignored. The illusion of safety. Falling murder rates are worth celebrating. Every life saved matters. But mistaking reduced violence for reduced criminal power is a dangerous illusion. The most sophisticated criminal organizations aim not to terrify societies, but to integrate into them. They thrive in stability, predictability, and institutional blind spots. They do not announce themselves, they embed. A final question for the Western democracies are well trained to respond to crisis. They are far less prepared to respond to quiet capture. So the real question is not whether Brazil's criminal evolution matters abroad. It is this: what happens when organized crime no longer needs violence to expand, and democratic systems only know how to react once violence returns? By the time that question becomes urgent, the damage is usually already done.